The Joker movie, it's not about the character's origin story, and that's because this story doesn't exist. The Joker is one of the most popular villains of all time, but compared to other villains, the Joker has no origin story. His story is a mystery and very little is known about it. So, how do you make an origin movie about a character that has no origin story? And more importantly, how do you give the characters an origin story without ruining its fundamentals? This is what we're going to see in today's episode of Peak. We're gonna find out the little we know about the Joker's origin story, how important Joaquin Phoenix was to the success of the film, and most importantly, how Todd Phillips managed to make an origin movie about a character who has no origin story, and to finally understand why Joker is more than a movie about the origin of Joker, and with doing so, revealing the true meaning of the story. So now, who is the Joker? Yes, we all know that the Joker is a psychopath who dresses up as a clown, which is also Batman's main villain and is one of the most iconic villains of all time. But where does he come from? Who really is the Joker? Does he have a name, a family, an origin? The truth is that I have no idea, but I'm not alone, because no one really knows where this character came from or what his official origin is. The little that is known about the Joker is this. The Joker was created by Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and Jerry Robinson. In case you didn't know, the main inspiration to create the Joker was a character from the movie The Man Who Laughs. This was a movie about a man who laughs. The Man Who Laughs was a person who was disfigured by a king when he was a child, who later becomes a clown that the royalty uses as a toy, and then he becomes the main star in a circus of freaks. One of the most interesting characteristics of the character, and one of the things that can be seen as the inspiration for the Joker, is the sinister smile which the Man Who Laughs has. So this is the origin of how the Joker was created. The Laughing Man was a clear inspiration for the Joker. On the other hand, the Joker character origin story, it's a little more complicated and mysterious. Most of Batman's supervillains have a specific origin, but the Joker is the only one of them all that doesn't have an origin story as such. The Joker's origin story is something that has been kept a mystery for a long time, and these stories are the two closest things we have about a Joker's origin story. The first is the most basic one, which is that Joker fell into a giant tub of chemicals that made his skin turn white and gave him this horrible appearance. But that is not necessarily an origin story. That could just be a story about how he became ugly, because maybe he was already crazy. The other story is presented to us in one of the most famous Joker comics, which is The Killing Joke. Here, through flashback, the Joker tells that he was a failed comedian who decides to commit a crime to help his pregnant wife. Batman then catches him and falls into a vat of chemicals, and bam, the Joker is born. But this, being the closest things we have about an origin story, is later denied by the Joker, as he says,
"Sometimes I remember it one way, sometimes another. If I'm going to have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice."
Which we also see reflected in Nolan's adaptation, because Heath Ledger Joker also tells different stories about how he got the scar on his face.
Want to know how I got these scars? My father was a drinker. Comes at me with the knife. He sticks the blade in my mouth. Well, you look nervous. Is it the scars? You want to know how I got them? I stick a razor in my mouth and do this to myself.
So this is not really an origin story of the Joker. I mean, the character doesn't really have an established origin story, and the truth is, I think that is pretty cool, and hopefully they'll never tell us an official origin story. Mainly because by making the Joker's origin story a mystery, you can get a lot more out of the character than if you just give him an origin story like everyone else. What this does is it maintains intrigue and fear towards the Joker. You want to know who he is, where he comes from, why he's doing these crazy things that he does. So not knowing all this makes you afraid, mostly because people are afraid of what they don't know or understand. Also, this can work because it represents better that the Joker is just pure chaos and destruction, exactly as Alfred describes him in Christopher Nolan's adaptation.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
And I think this is a perfect definition for the Joker. I feel that it is essential for the character to not have an origin story as such, and this is because it goes perfectly with what the character represents and how he is as a person. So how do you make a movie that tells the origin story of a character if the character itself has no origin story. And how do you do it so you don't ruin the character and this idea that it is better not to have an origin story? Well, all this seems like an impossible task, but somehow Todd Phillips did it with his version of the Joker. And not only that, but he made it perfect, and at the same time, he made one of the best movies we've ever had about a villain. So this is how Todd Phillips managed to adapt an inadaptable villain. In 2019, Todd Phillips released in theaters the first origin film of the character Joker. The movie became a success, managing to raise $1 billion at the box office and giving an Oscar to Joaquin Phoenix. But who is this Joker? What was Todd Phillips' vision for adapting the character, and what did he do to make it work? The main story of this movie is basically a very famous quote from the Joker, a quote that says,
I've demonstrated there's no difference between me and everyone else. All it takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day.
one bad day is all it takes. And in this movie, we see that bad day for the Joker, only that it is not only one day, it is his whole life, and also a collection of situations that make another bad day unbearable and finally explode. Let me explain. In Joker, we follow the story of Arthur Fleck, a mentally ill man who lives with his mother in a small apartment with horrible conditions and works as a clown to pay debts and take care of his mother. Throughout the movie, we see Arthur Fleck live in the experience of having mental problems in a world where they are rejected and treated horribly. One example is this joke he writes down in his notebook that says, "The worst part about having mental illness is people expect you to act like you don't." Essentially, the goal of this movie is to put Arthur Fleck in horrible situations that should not have to happen. The point is to prove that the world can be very harsh and has no mercy with anyone. Besides having mental problems, the Joker has a condition where he has these episodes of laughter that he just can't control. He even has a card and everything to warn people about his condition, and yet people don't seem to care at all and continue to see him just as another weirdo or crazy person. And this is just something extra that I found interesting, but I decided to investigate if this condition was real, and it just turns out that it is. This condition is called PVA, or pseudovulvar affect, and according to one clinic, it is a condition characterized by sudden, uncontrollable, and inappropriate episodes of laughing or crying. PVA can occur in people with brain injuries, strokes, or certain neurological conditions. That was hard for me, okay? English is not my main language. And it makes sense that the Joker has it, since later in the movie we are told that he was abused as a child, which we will get to later because it is a very important point. I mean, let me get there. So this is what I found about this disease and why Arthur acts the way he does. And the truth is, Joaquin Phoenix did a spectacular job of portraying this. And not just this, but this Joker in general, because he was definitely essential to make this Joker work. Joaquin Phoenix is an excellent actor. He is one of the best actors of all time and has definitely made his mark in Hollywood. And in this movie, he did excellent. I mean, just to prepare for the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix spent 8 months studying and finding the right way to play a character with mental illness. Phoenix knew he didn't want the psychologist to be able to figure out what was the thing that Arthur had, so he based his personality on different mentally ill killers from a book he read. And one of the hardest things he had to endure to play this Joker was the weight loss. Joaquin Phoenix said that one of the first things he did was to study the side effects of the medicine Arthur Fleck was taking. Here, he discovered that the drugs Arthur was taking in real life make people lose weight very quickly. So he decided that he was going to lose weight to play the Joker. Joaquin Phoenix lost an astonishing 50 pounds in just 4 months. All this in order to really experience what Arthur was going through and help him get more into character and all the craziness that surrounds him. Because losing all that weight in such a short time can really affect your mentality and also your psychology. So at some point, Joaquin Phoenix really thought he was going crazy. One of the most important things about the Joker that Joaquin Phoenix had to perfect was the laugh. So much that he several times asked the director Todd Phillips if he could come to his house to show him the different Joker laughs he had in mind and which one would be the best. So that's how he found his perfect laugh. And all of this is a combination of things that Joaquin Phoenix had to do to be able to play the Joker. And the truth is that he did an incredible job. Thanks to the performance of Joaquin Phoenix is that we can understand the character more. You can feel the desperation in him, the madness, how hard it is for him to have the condition of laughter, how every laugh you can see that it hurts him. We could also see the development he had throughout the movie and how he slowly descends into madness. Joaquin Phoenix did excellent as the Joker, and it is a good thing that he won the Oscar for Best Actor because he definitely deserves it. That way of telling and interpreting how Arthur Fleck descends into madness is not something easy to do. Seeing Arthur go through all of this was a key point from this movie to work. So how did Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips manage to adapt a character as complicated as the Joker without ruining his story? From the first minute of the film, we enter into this atmosphere of suffering in which Arthur finds himself. At the beginning of the movie, we see Arthur doing his job as a clown. He's just spinning a sign trying to make a living, and out of nowhere, some people come, take away his sign, and take him into an alley so they can beat him up. He did absolutely nothing, and yet he was punished. Arthur goes through these moments where he is slowly losing faith in the world and at the same time descending into madness. And that can change anyone. Now add into the mix that Arthur is a person with mental problems and trauma who needs help, and which in fact is willing to change. Throughout the movie we see him going to therapy with a psychologist, but oh surprise, just as it seems that no one in the world cares about what happens to Arthur, not even the person that is being paid to care about him is concerned. This woman does not pay attention to Arthur and only tells him to take his medication. To make matter worse, this organization that gave Arthur help ends up being closed by the government so he can no longer go to therapy. And that's when he realizes that he doesn't really matter. He doesn't matter to other people, he's just trash. All Arthur wants is to be recognized by others. This may be one of the reasons why we see him hallucinating all the time. I mean, whether it's with this woman he imagined a lifetime with, him hallucinating that his stand-up came out perfect, or him daydreaming that he's appreciated by everyone on this TV show. He just wants to be recognized by others, and that's very difficult in a world where everyone has their own problems and ambitions, and they don't mind stepping on others to achieve them. That's why he started to feel good about killing those 3 Wall Street guys. When he killed these 3 people on the train, he felt terrified at first, but little by little he started to feel good about himself because he started to notice that he was making an impact, that one way or another people were watching him, people were paying attention, so much so that his action created a movement and a revolution. Throughout the movie we see Arthur in unpleasant situations that gradually make him realize that the world is a horrible place. So little by little throughout the movie you see how he starts to lose his sanity. You see how his bad day away is getting closer and closer until he gets to the point where he can't take it anymore. You can see how he's tired of feeling rejected by society, of being abused, of being mistreated, of everyone looking at him as a freak, and suddenly this day away comes. What finally broke the cup and made Arthur descend completely into madness was when he found out that he was actually abused as a child by his mother. I mean, not by his mother, but his mother allowing that. Here he realized that his whole life was a lie, and he also realized that nothing was worth it. I mean, not even his mother, who thought was the only person that cared about him. And this is when this quote has the biggest impact.
I used to think that my life was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a comedy.
This whole movie is about this quote, and now finally he has accepted the Joker in his life. Arthur is in the past, only the Joker remains. So we can get a closer look at this when he goes to perform at the show. When he's walking to get to the TV show, Joker does this iconic dance doing a reference that he is descending into madness. And all of this is much clearer in the amazing final scene where Joker gives us this monologue on the TV show. And this is where all this anger that was built up during the movie, every single situation that Arthur had to go through, finally explodes.
How about another joke, Marie? What do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society that abandons him and treats him like trash? Get what you deserve!
That's how the Joker goes from being a person rejected by society, hated and mistreated, to a person who finally feels loved by others. Someone who is finally seen, and most shockingly, a symbol for the city of Gotham. So, more than an origin story about the Joker, this movie explores in a very deep way the different situations that a person with mental and psychological problems have to go through, how they function in society, how they are treated, and the different problems that they have. That's why this adaptation works so well. This movie could easily be a very good movie without necessarily being about the Joker. What this movie does is put us in the shoes of a mentally ill person who is trying to fit in a world where everyone treats him like garbage, and with that, the consequences that can come with it. I honestly feel like this movie does a perfect job of disguising this story into a Joker movie. So this is just my opinion and you should just ignore it. Thanks for watching this video to the end, subscribe for more, and see you in another episode of Pick. By the way, you might like this video where I take a deep dive into why Robert Pattinson's Batman is incredible, so here you go. You might like it.